Do you guys watch sports? Have you ever heard of the classic playoff saying of the best offense is a great defense? Well, we're going to take that to heart today with this build. We are going to build the ultimate defense, and believe it or not, it is not Well of Radiance. By the way, the best sport is hockey. Just wanted to throw that in there since I used a sports joke in there, so why not? Today's video is going to be about a Stasis Warlock build going from an ice-cold defense into a great offense that will counterattack everything. We're going to switch it up a little bit today and talk about our weapons first before getting into the ability-heavy stuff. There's going to be 2 weapons locked into this build, and then 1 weapon that's going to be a flex spot. The flex spot is basically whatever you want to cover in terms of problematic issues like champions. So, a hand cannon for Unstoppables, for example, maybe a sidearm for barriers, you know, whatever you want to cover. Now, the other 2 weapons that are locked into this are going to be, number 1, Ager's Scepter, the exotic trace rifle that is going to be in our kinetic slot, which freezes enemies upon just killing any other enemy around them. And then it also has an additional catalyst perk, which is you can hold reload to drain your super energy, overflowing the magazine and empowering this beam with bonus damage, and the ability to slow and freeze targets until the magazine or the super has run out. And that super portion can only be activated when your super is full, in case you're wondering. And we have an additional perk that says Stasis Final Blows transfer ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves. Then in our heavy slot, we're going to be using Squilliam's Terminus, a machine gun from the King's Fall raid, a D1 classic, reinvented as a Stasis machine gun. This machine gun will have 2 perks on it in Unrelenting and Headstone. Now, Unrelenting is pretty straightforward. It's on the gun because we want to get some health back when we're shooting stuff. Then Headstone says Precision Final Blows, spawn a Stasis Crystal at a target's location, and, well, our entire build is freezing stuff and popping crystals. And speaking of freezing, our exotic armor piece today is going to be Ozymancy Gloves. Most of you will probably know this exotic from Mayhem in the Crucible, where people like to commit war crimes and just spamming turrets 24/7. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, except in PvE. For those of you that don't know what these gloves actually do, all jokes aside, your Cold Snap Grenade has an additional charge when you wear these gloves, and they also recharge quicker on direct impact. The secret spawn from the Cold Snap Grenade also travels further. So the core idea for this build is essentially to freeze large groups of enemies together all at once, and then shooting one of them, and then shattering that enemy, which will then shatter everything else around it, and they just all fall over and die. Now, on its own, it's a fine concept. However, we're going to crank it up a notch by having the ability region go through the roof, and allowing us to just cycle through things much faster than normal. And with that, let's segue into our subclass screen. Now let's talk about the super first. Shadebinder. The first thing you should do is completely ignore that this super even exists. Now, you can pay attention to the bar of the super on the bottom left of your screen, but popping your super, just pretend that it's literally locked down, like you don't even have a keybind for your super, and just never use it. The reason for this is because we're going to be cranking our super straight into Ager's Scepter in its catalyst mode, which will make it go into overdrive and mow everything down thanks to our ability regen, how long the uptime is on that catalyst burn, and how fast Ager's melts everything while it's in that form. While Ager's is doing this, we're going to also have a defensive supporting cast in our turrets, which we also will be spamming nonstop throughout this entire process. Let's start with aspects next. So obviously you're going to want Bleak Watcher on your aspects, as this is going to turn all your cold snaps into turrets. You hold your grenade, it turns it into a turret, you throw it, and then it starts freezing stuff. The other aspect is going to be Ice Flare Bolts. Technically speaking, this is not mandatory, and you could swap it out if you'd like. Some people like the whole Freezing Rift animation where you're in a pinch next to enemies, which is fine. I just think Ice Flare fits this build very well. Ice Flare is shattering a frozen target, spawns Seekers that track and freeze other nearby targets. So it still works very well, just like anything else. Now for the abilities, I have Healing Rift, Burst Jump, the melee, which never changes, and then obviously Cold Snap Grenade, but we're not actually going to use Cold Snap, we're just going to eat them and then throw the turrets instead. Now for fragments going from left to right, we have Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time that you take damage from targets. Given that it is Onslaught and we're surrounded 95% of the time, you're always going to be taking damage, so this is always going to be triggering. Number 2, we have Whisper of Fissures. Increase the damage and the size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. So Headstone makes a crystal, that's a pop, that's a burst, more damage. Ager's, when it's in the catalyst mode, it's going to freeze and shatter literally everything, which will make the explosions on that bigger as well, which will help you immensely. Number 3, Whisper of Chains. While you are near a frozen target or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage. So it's built-in damage resistance on top of having your actual resist on and being at 100 resilience. That is always a good thing. And number 4 is Whisper of Bonds. Defeating frozen targets generates an orb of power. That's going to go into our ability regen kit, which will go in the mods in a second. Now, in the artifact, there are 2 mods to look out for in a stasis build. Those being Pillar of Ice, defeating a frozen target spawns a stasis crystal, and then Hail the Storm, shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage. Shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets as well. And finally, the mods, going from top to bottom, starting with the helmet, we have 3 mods. Number 1 is Harmonic Siphon, for when we get kills with Ager's Scepter and Squilliam's Terminus. Number 2 is Dynamo, to reduce our super cooldown when using our class ability, just rifting, and then we use the super energy that we get when we charge it to use Ager's with the Catalyst form again. Number 3 is Heavy Ammo Finder, because why wouldn't you just want more heavy ammo just in case on the ground? For our Ozymandias gloves, we have 3 mods. First, a copy of Bolstering Detonation, grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade, and the last 2 slots go to Grenade Kickstart. When your grenade energy is fully expanded, your armor charge is consumed, and you gain grenade energy for each armor charge consumed. Spoiler alert, we're going to be making a ton of orbs, not just off of the Siphon. Chests, do whatever the hell you want. I always go with the resist mods in Onslaught though, 1 Void, 1 Solar, and 1 Arc Resist. And moving on to the boots, here we have 3 mods. First, 2 copies of Innervation, reduce grenade cooldown each time you pick up an Orb of Power. And the last one is 1 copy of Absolution, reduce all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an Orb of Power. And the class item, we have 3 mods. First, starting with Bomber, reduce our grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Then a copy of Distribution, reduce all ability cooldowns when using your class ability. And finally, 1 copy of Powerful Attraction. Now, some people might say this slot should go to Reaper, and to be fair, you could use that here, and it'd be totally fine. However, my thinking here is we're going to be making orbs off of not only our Siphon mods, but also our Fragment in our kit, which will make orbs every time we freeze enemies, which is literally going to be non-stop. So when we do freeze those enemies, and we are using our class ability for these other mods that I just mentioned, then Powerful Attraction will activate and pick up Orbs of Power on the ground, which are going to be scattered literally everywhere. Remember, this is Onslaught, and you're playing with 2 other people, and you're going to be making orbs everywhere constantly, so the chances are of you not having an orb on the ground already are very slim. So Powerful Attraction is really good, because you don't have to actually walk by every single orb. You just scoop them up, get your super energy full, then activate Ager's Catalyst, and go burr everywhere, literally. Overall, I think this build is really fun, engaging, and rewarding to play with an offensive maneuver counterattack, as opposed to Well of Radiance Warlocks, where you're just kind of there to be a butler, where you pop your well as support to not die and protect your teammates, or they'll ask you to wear an airplane landing zone on your head, so you can be Cenotaph and make them ammo while you're also giving them that well. Here, I feel like I can get a good defense, counterattack, everything just starts falling over from all of my abilities that I, spec'd into and build crafted, and it just feels good overall. Now, is it better than Well of Radiance? No, absolutely not. Let's not kid ourselves, don't be silly. Well of Radiance is still incredibly dumb. But sometimes, you want to play the fun option instead of the best option. And in this case, the fun option is still pretty damn good in its own right. And that's the build. I will have a dim link to the build down below in the description in case anybody wants to try it. In the meantime, if you enjoyed the build or the video, please consider subscribing today and helping the channel out and growing. It's much appreciated. And also, if you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like on the video and leave a comment as well. If you don't know what to comment, you can simply leave Ager's as the comment. And if you care about all the social stuff, that's in the description below as well. Twitch, Twitter, TikTok, community Discord, yada yada. I'm going to stop yapping. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.